The drone industry is poised to become a multi-billion-dollar industry expanding across a wide range of commercial applications. With rapidly increasing recreational and commercial drone traffic, the risk to airport operations is increasing as well. On today's Innovation Spotlight, we're going to focus on one approach that may allow safe integration of drones around airports and an ability to detect and identify drone threats. Joining us in the studio is Dan Dalton, Vice President of Operations for Airspace Systems, a leading provider of drone security systems and drone policy making, as a founding member of the FAA's Drone Advisory Committee. Dan came to Airspace with nearly a decade of experience in Washington in senior positions at the U.S. Department of Energy and National Nuclear Security Administration, including serving as the director of the Office of Nuclear Threat Science. Dan holds a Master of Arts in International Relations and Economics from Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies and a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering from the University of California, San Diego. Thanks for being here and for joining us to discuss this important issue of drone security in and around airports.
Thanks for having me.
So you're no stranger to the aviation world. You're a pilot. You've previously worked on military UAS systems like the Predator. Tell us a little bit about your latest venture, or adventure, I guess, with Airspace Systems.
Airspace is basically a drone security company, and what we do is provide detection and, if necessary, mitigation capabilities to our customer sets. We do that through using artificial intelligence to really be able to lower the barrier of this highly complex architecture of detection and make it as easy as possible for our users, especially in the airport realm.
So it's particularly timely right now because FAA and our members, airports, are grappling with how to regulate the activity, how much of it is going to be technology-dependent systems, how much we're going to have to put in new policy making. As I mentioned in your intro, you're active on FAA's Drone Advisory Committee. Where are we in the regulatory environment right now?
It's evolving, absolutely. I think, and all of your folks know this, it's really been an interesting confluence of events because there's been so much regulatory environment around the manned aircraft, and we are trying to figure out how to almost move that into unmanned aircraft, but at the same time realizing that there's so many challenges with unmanned aircraft in that they are such a new thing for us, especially in the regulatory space. So the Drone Advisory Committee is really trying to pull together those CEOs and those senior executives from various organizations in industry to help advise the FAA on how to safely and securely integrate these into the manned aircraft environment. So.
And so what are the sticky issues? What are the things that the committee is primarily focused on?
One of the hardest things is really remote identification, right? So the ability to have a tail number on a manned aircraft, we need to have that same ability on drones. In order to really understand and be able to use commercial drones, we have to have security as a prerequisite. And so right now, the Drone Advisory Committee is very focused on that. In fact, Airspace was actually just asked to lead the UAS security task group in the Drone Advisory Committee to be able to really focus on how do we secure the airframe in terms of the drone itself, as well as how do we secure the airspace and the operations around the drone. So.
And what sort of activities does that involve? So it's one thing to say, ensure it's secure, but what are the specific activities that they're having to work through to get to that point?
So one of the things that a lot of people are worried about is the nefarious use of drones. What are the ways that someone can actually take a drone and actually do something bad or do harm with it? So are there ways that we can actually build into the technology itself that makes it that the drone is actually not able to be used for some sort of nefarious purpose, or to make it more challenging? There's never going to be a silver bullet. That's really important.
Right.
There is no one thing that will solve all of this, but if we can layer in security, we call it security by design, if we can layer that into the actual drone, as well as the way that the drone is operated, as well as the environment that the drone operates in, we think that those are enough layers to prevent nefarious actors, as well as just the careless and the clueless people who maybe just got this as a toy and didn't realize that they were flying it so close to an airport. So.
And so this is where Airspace comes in, not in your thought leadership capacity working through the advisory committee, but actually with a solution. And so behind every startup is a new or novel way to bring technology or processes to solve a challenge or a problem that their customers are facing. There seemingly are dozens, if not 100 different firms that are taking different angles at solving the drone security problem. What is Airspace's approach, and why is it different from the other approaches?
Right. You're absolutely right in that there are tons of radar vendors, and there's radio frequency detector vendors, and cameras, and acoustic, and LiDAR. There's so many ways that an airport could easily get lost in how to decide what to actually buy. We realize that all of these technologies are fantastic, but they're also kind of a snapshot in time. So what is the way that you could actually build a platform, almost like we would call a middleware, that allows you to be sensor agnostic and plug in these various sensors, especially as they become obsolete. You take that one out, put a new one in. So we provide that through what we call Airspace Galaxy, which is that middleware platform that allows sensor agnostic integration of many different types of sensors. Because again, there's no one sensor that's going to be able to detect all of the drones you want.
So there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so there's monitoring or detecting whether or not a drone is where it should be or shouldn't be, and then there are specific actions that your customers want to be able to take to address whether or not that drone is where it should be or shouldn't be. So give us an example. I mean, maybe give us a use case of how this would work in practice and why it's important.
Absolutely. So there's actually a large international airport that we're working with right now here in the United States. So they have multiple runways, a large geographic area they need to cover. And so one of the things that we go in and do is a site evaluation to kind of understand how and where the sensor placement will be optimally placed. But in addition to that, it's not just at the airport, it's off airport too. So how do we help them build in their stakeholder relationships with maybe new personnel outside of the airport that they didn't previously need to integrate with? We also work with them on the response plans and building that framework, because it's not just a bird sighting, it's something completely different. Yeah. So how do we build in that entire kind of turnkey solution that goes beyond just the technology, but involves the regulatory and the stakeholders and all of that type of thing? So
a day in the life of a drone coming into an environment, so let's say an airport. What would Airspace do and how would an airport be made aware that this drone is a potential threat? How does the system actually work?
Sure. So to the system operator, it actually just looks like a Google map or something like that. It's a very simple interface, and it would show the drone as being a red drone, a yellow drone, or a green drone. Yeah. And there are a lot of green drones out there. To be clear, we are very pro drone. We love the industry. Many of us are drone pilots, but it's all about right place, right time. So especially as Lance and these other new features come on from the FAA, you want to make sure that you're not going after a drone that's actually legally allowed to be there. And especially as drone commerce starts to increase, there's going to be more and more of those green drones. Yeah. But for the yellow and the red drones, absolutely, you want to make sure that you have a response plan. So we would go through with the system operator and kind of explain the different escalating levels of response that they could actually use in order to make sure that they're safely taking care of that drone. So.
And what are the different levels of response that are emerging as being appropriate?
Sure. So first and foremost is monitoring. Is that drone there for 2 seconds and then goes away? Because you don't want to escalate too quickly. That being said, our software actually helps to determine the behavior of the drone. If it, for example, is it a repeat offender? Is this someone who pops up every morning at 7 a.m. to watch maybe a certain airline come in? Or is this someone new? And so the software actually has the ability to determine through various methods that basically this is a repeat offender or not, and this is an increasing threat or not. Okay. And so the response then would be, okay, should we actually send someone out? Is it someone to drive out there in Ops 1 to kind of see if this is an issue along the fence line? Or do we actually call local law enforcement and have them look at it? So there's, again, a measured escalating response platform. So interesting.
So and it leaves open a lot of different options in terms of how you respond, how you monitor, and determine the appropriate use in and around an airport. So it seems your technology is appropriate to a lot of different environments. At the top, you mentioned that it wasn't just airports, that you're talking to stadiums and presumably other critical infrastructure who would need to monitor, address, or otherwise be able to mitigate drone threats. Why aviation?
Yeah.
Why airports specifically? So obviously drones are a part of aviation, but why are our members, why are airports sort of primary interest for your firm right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting nexus point. So nowhere else do you have the integration or kind of the confluence of a very elite and professional form of transportation with people who also have maybe no idea what even a sectional looks like and have no idea what Class B airports are and that type of thing. At the same time, you have a highly educated and very technical organization in the airports. And at the same time, they also are learning about new policies that they're having to evolve with at the same time. So when you bring in the various types of professionals, as well as the kind of recreational user that may not know much about it, and policy evolving, there's nowhere else in the entire national air system where that actually is happening, except for at airports. So.
And you know, when I talk to airport professionals, it seems that they fall into two camps. They see drones as a threat, or something that they need to address, or they see drones as something that is going to dramatically enhance the operational capabilities of the airport, and it's a reality that we need to move quickly to sort of coexist with this burgeoning growth in drone traffic. If you look forward 5 years from now, what is the ideal scenario that you see in terms of drones and commercial air traffic coexisting in the same area?
I mean, ideally, when you look out the window of your aircraft, you see a drone and it makes you feel better, actually. You know that someone is actually flying a drone around to make sure that the de-icer got everything that they needed on that aircraft, or that there is no FOD on the runway. That drone actually gives you the sense of comfort and safety. That's kind of the ideal, and that you know if there's a drone buzzing overhead, it's probably on a predefined flight path that's delivering something to someone, whether it be defibrillator or some new gimmick that someone needed in an hour quickly from an online shopping network. So that is kind of that's the utopia, right?
Yeah.
And so to get there, we have to make sure that we understand everything that's in the air, whether it's unmanned or manned. So.
Well. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your vision and helping our members deploy solutions, processes, and technologies that will allow drones to coexist at their airports. And we hope you'll come back and join us and give us an update soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. And thank you for joining us. That concludes this edition of Aviation Innovation Spotlight.